I came back to the lake to rebuild a promise I made to my daughter and found a bulldozer already tearing the porch off my house. The woman in charge, wearing a white suit and sunglasses, handed me a bill for $112,000 and told me my deed meant nothing. That's the moment I realized this wasn't just about a house, it was a war I didn't know I'd joined. My name's Michael McMichael. I'm a contractor, a father, and until that morning a man who believed that a piece of land with your name on it was sacred. I'd bought the old Lakeview mansion at a county tax auction. Everyone else saw asbestos and rotten timber. I saw a chance to keep a promise my daughter Jessie had always dreamed of, a lake house. She's gone now, and fixing this place was supposed to be how I kept her close. The first morning there felt almost holy sunlight through pine trees' air, thick with dew, birdsong echoing off the water. I walked through every room, making notes on a pad: rewire, repair, plaster, replace floorboards. It wasn't a ruin to me. It was therapy. But when I drove back the next day with a truck full of supplies, I heard the engines. Diesel, growl metal, crushing wood. And there it was, a bulldozer, on the lawnmen in safety vests, ripping apart the porch I'd planned to rebuild. I jumped out and yelled, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The foreman didn't even look up from his clipboard. "Demolition order," he said, bored. "HOA says this place is unsafe." "HOA," I barked. "This property isn't part of any HOA. I bought it from the county. It's mine." He shrugged. "Take it up with the board." Then came the SUV, black, polished, expensive. The door opened, and out stepped the queen of this little kingdom, Charlene Hernandez. Late 50s hair sprayed stiff as armor, holding a designer coffee cup like a weapon. She didn't look at the house. She looked at me like I was a bug. "Are you the new occupant?" she asked. "I'm the owner, and you're trespassing." She sighed. "Mr. McMichael, I'm the president of the Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association. This property is under our jurisdiction and severely delinquent." I told her the deed was clean. She smiled, a tight little smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh, the county doesn't handle private covenants. The previous owner owed more than a decade of fees and penalties. When you bought the property, you bought the debt. $112,000 and counting." I just stared at her. "Your first notice is to show up with a demolition crew." She laughed, sharp and hollow. "The notices were posted publicly. We're not responsible for your ignorance." Then she waved her hand like she was shooing a fly. "Pay the debt, or we will finish the demolition." She left me standing there in the dust, watching my porch collapse. That night I sat in my truck by the ruins. I called every lawyer in town. Most refused the case. One old man finally agreed to see me. He studied my deed and said, "You own it, no question. But private HOA covenants, they can survive a tax sale. And Mrs. Hernandez, she's got the code office, the planning board, maybe even a judge or two in her pocket. My advice? Settle. Settle. For something I didn't owe." I drove back to the property and stayed there staring at the house through the windshield until dawn. I remembered Jessie's voice in the hospital, thin but steady. "A place for you, Dad, so you won't be alone." Now it was being torn apart. That night, anger replaced grief. But the next morning they came again, bigger machines, this time with a sheriff's deputy. He served me a cease and desist, claiming my presence was interfering with emergency remediation. A lie wrapped in legal paper. When I protested, the deputy just said, "Take it up with the court." By evening, private security guards had posted red warning signs all over my lawn. Unsafe structure. No trespassing. Cameras aimed at my house. My own property looked like a crime scene. I drove around the neighborhood trying to find someone, anyone willing to talk. Most people turned away. Finally, an old man tinkering with a lawnmower spoke first. "You're the guy at the old mansion." "Yeah, name's Mike." "Pete Withers," he said. "She's done this before. Ran a vet named Henderson clean out of town, all over the color of his mailbox." I told him I wasn't Henderson. He nodded once slow and went back to his wrench. That night he showed up at my truck with a dusty accordion file. "Keep this quiet," he muttered. I was on the first board back in '86. These are the original bylaws before she rewrote everything. I opened the file under the dim truck light, page after page of legal sludge. Then I saw it, one sentence buried in a paragraph. All liens or fines shall be void if not collected within 10 years of assessment. 10 years. Charlene's debts were ancient. Her claim was fake. The next day I went to the county courthouse, spent hours digging through records, old ledgers, corporate filings. Then I found it, Lakeview Estates HOA had been administratively dissolved in 2005 for failure to file. It didn't exist. For 17 years, they'd been operating as ghosts terrorizing people with no legal authority. A retired clerk named Elaine confirmed it. She read the papers and said, "Well, I'll be damned. They've got no standing at all." That was the first time I smiled in weeks. I hired a young city lawyer who specialized in real estate fraud. He filed an emergency cease and desist and a quiet title action to lock my ownership down. Meanwhile, I bought 2 worthless lots next to mine. One of them, according to the old plans, contained the community pump house that fed water to every sprinkler and fountain in the neighborhood. Strategic territory. Charlene must have sensed the walls closing in because soon after I was arrested again. A deputy cuffed me for violating a restraining order she had magically produced, claiming I had to stay 500 feet from my own land. The document was forged. My lawyer got me out within hours, but sitting in that cell, shoes and belt taken, hearing the door clang shut. That's when I hit bottom. I remember thinking, maybe she's right. Maybe the system really belongs to people like her. Then I thought of Jesse's drawing, the one of a lake house with wide porches. A place for you, Dad. I wasn't giving up. I went back through Pete's old file hunting for another weapon. Found a clause saying any 10% of homeowners could call a special meeting to recall the entire board. 10% meant 20 signatures. Pete Carl, the guy whose wife used a wheelchair, and another neighbor named David with an oxygen tank were my first 3. We went door to door. People slammed doors, hid behind curtains, but a few listened. One woman was fined because squirrels scattered seed shells from her bird feeder. Another family had to tear down their kids' swing set because it was plastic, not cedar. Bit by bit, signatures came, 27 in total. We posted the official notice special community meeting Wednesday Lakeview Clubhouse. Minimum 5 days notice. Just enough to make them sweat. I also called a local investigative reporter, Sarah Jennings, who loved exposing corruption. I promised her proof and a show. When Wednesday came, the clubhouse was packed. You could feel the tension like dry kindling waiting for a spark. Charlene sat at the front, her board lined up beside her, acting annoyed but smug. She started the meeting with that ice-cold voice. This gathering is a baseless stunt organized by a delinquent property owner. I stepped to the podium. You're right about one thing I said. It's about ownership and about lies. Slide 1 on the projector, a document from the county showing the HOA's corporate dissolution in 2005. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Slide 2, my clean deed from the county tax sale. Slide 3, the 10-year expiration clause from the original bylaws. Then I clicked to the map, 3 red parcels. As of last week, I own these lots, I said, including this small square right here. The pump house that feeds every lawn, every dock, every fountain in Lakeview. Silence. Then I added, your authority is based on a lie. You have 48 hours to resign and release every fake lien, or I shut off the valve. Charlene shot to her feet shouting about slander, but her words drowned under the rising roar of angry neighbors. Sarah's camera was rolling, catching every second. I walked out before the chaos peaked. The next day, I locked the pump house door with a new heavy padlock and waited. That night, Charlene lost control. She sent an email smearing me, claiming I was unstable, that my daughter hadn't really died, that I was hiding some shameful secret. Reading that broke something inside me. Not sorrow, something colder. So I set up motion sensor trail cameras around the property. And just after 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed, motion detected. Grainy images came through an SUV with its headlights off, 3 figures creeping toward the pump house. I zoomed in. Charlene, her vice president, and another board member. Crowbar in hand, trying to break my lock. I called the sheriff's department, gave them my name, my property address, and told them I had live video of a break-in. Then I waited on the porch. 10 minutes later, blue and red lights exploded through the trees. Deputies jumped out, flashlights cutting across the mud. Charlene froze like a deer in headlights. "That's them," I said, holding up my phone. The lead deputy, the same one who'd arrested me, looked at the footage, then at her. I saw the realization in his eyes. He turned to his partner and said, "Cuff 'em." Seeing her wrists snap into handcuffs was pure, quiet justice. The reporter arrived moments later, camera rolling as they read her rights. Later that morning, the deputy told me my quiet title action had gone through unopposed. The county officially recognized the HOA as dissolved. Pete was there too, grinning for the first time. He walked to the big Lakeview Estates sign and ripped it out of the ground. The fight was over. Charlene Hernandez faced charges for trespassing, fraud, and filing false documents. Her vice president and the rest of the board resigned before noon. The news story went viral, neighbors all over town coming forward with their own horror stories, every illegal fine documented, every stolen dollar traced back to her private account. I didn't celebrate. I just stood on the muddy ground where my porch used to be and breathed. The air smelled different, clean, quiet, free. The next morning, Pete showed up with a rake. "Figured you could use a hand," he said. Then another truck arrived. Then another. People who'd once shut their doors now came with shovels and gloves. We cleared the debris together, plank by plank. By sunset, the ground was bare, ready to rebuild. Charlene's kingdom was gone, but the house still stood. And as I looked at the reflection of the lake in the fading light, I thought about Jesse. I'd kept my promise. Some fights aren't about winning. They're about not letting someone take away what's rightfully yours.